All right, we're live. All right, welcome to another debate. Today, it's going to be on Trump's presidency and whether he should be reelected this year. So if you guys want to just quickly introduce yourselves, and if you guys have opening statements you guys want to make, just feel free.
Sure. Well, I'm Christian, and I'm a Trump supporter. And do you want to do it, or do I go with my opening statement?
I'm Drew. My name is Strawberry Boy on TikTok. I'm a member of Classical Liberation in the Dim Hype House, and I also post on the leftist account. And I'll be arguing that Trump should not be reelected. And I have an opening statement, but you can go first if you want to, Christian.
Yeah. Well, I want to start off by saying that I wasn't always a Trump supporter. I actually didn't agree with what he did, but the reason was because I never did research younger when he got first elected, and I mostly just believed what my friends said and what the media said, and I didn't do any research until up 2 years into his into his election, and I realized that unemployment was at an all-time low, wages are growing faster than ever, poverty rates are at an all-time low, taxes have been significantly dropped. He's working on revitalizing low-income communities, and based on my personal experience, he's done a lot for this country.
Okay, so I guess I can go. I wrote mine out. When Donald Trump shocked the world with his election in 2016, he left many supporters hopeful for a presidency that would make America great again, and one that would put America first. Some key promises from his campaign include eliminating the federal debt, enacting term limits, and building a wall. Trump failed every single one of these promises miserably. In addition, his rhetoric and leadership have been an absolute embarrassment to the social fabric and integrity of America. Negative race relations are at an all-time high. Numerous former aides and cabinet members have come out and condemned his disastrous foreign policy and diplomacy, and he has abandoned allies such as the Kurds for slaughter. The platform I was most optimistic for was his claim to drain the swamp. This is one of the biggest lies ever told in American politics. Trump has a cabinet full of corporatism and ineffective and unqualified cronyism that farther contribute to the absolute embarrassment of a presidency Trump has endured. Today, I'll be covering many different aspects of what makes a president a good president. We'll go over issues such as the environment, economy, leadership, promises, foreign policy, and much more. I'll attempt to elaborate on these positions as much as possible and do my best to prove that Trump has been a foreign and domestic failure and that he does not deserve re-election in the 2020 election.
All right. So, on your point about federal debt, Trump has done a lot for our federal debt. He's poured lots of millions, even trillions of dollars into the economy, and he's even made trade deals go up. And with foreign countries, he's even come up with new trade deals like China, Japan, and and the USMSC.
My problem with the debt is that he promised to eliminate it, but in his first 2 years, he added $3.1 trillion, and he's on track to go almost to where Obama was, even though he was in a period of economic recovery when Obama inherited one of the worst economies since the Great Depression. And so it's just it's unbelievable that he was able to add $3.1 trillion when he was gifted like a good economy that was in upwards trends. And like the fact that he said he would eliminate it, first, I don't even really care about the debt that much as a thing. I don't think it matters too much. In addition to things, I think a healthy deficit is good because I have more Keynesian beliefs and whatnot. But no, the debt has not been reduced since he's been president. It's only gone up, and it's gone up substantially. The recent was even just from 2 years ago, from 2019. Was this updated thing from Business Insider, and he had added $3.1 trillion. And I guess, what do you So you mentioned Trump's economy in your opening statement, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to talk about the economy now, because we have COVID and something, but I'll talk about his COVID response later.
Yeah,
but I don't see basically, since I don't see any policy that Trump initiated that actually helped the economy. he had like a giant tax cut, but the only thing that was like a positive from the Obama administration's last 2 years was an increase in S&P 500 buybacks, which is just like the stock market doing well. But the vast majority of Americans don't even own stocks. And so like unless we want to argue that S&P 500 buybacks are the thing that like makes an economy great, then he basically did nothing for the economy and just inherited Obama's growth from my standpoint.
Well, I disagree with that because not only that, but he, like I said, he did improve trade deals with other foreign countries, but he also increased wages. Wages have gone up at their fastest rate in over a decade, exceeding 3%, which is far more than what Obama did. As you said, he had a good economy, but Trump has gotten it up.
And I think wage increase is more due to Obama era policy than Trump. Because like can you like name the policies he enacted that led to wage increase?
Oh yeah, hang on. Oh yeah, obviously you talked about tax cuts. President Trump signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which it enabled 6 million American workers receiving wage increases, bonuses, and increased benefits.
The tax and jobs cuts that wasn't even like a significant like the majority. I can send you a source from economists that shows that like that piece of legislation was like very largely ineffective in terms of like, yeah, he passed it, but it's like a fallacy of the correlation equals causation. Like we can't look at this tax cut that he put in and automatically make the assumption that because wages rose that it came from this tax cut. We have to look at like the specific implications. And since wages were already rising under Obama because of his like increased spending, then like the actual wage increase like isn't due to Trump's like specific policy from my standpoint.
Well, yeah, I guess it isn't a totally fair statement to say that all of the credit goes to him, but I really assume that him increasing wages and stuff like that, I think it has impacted the economy, and I think it should be attributed to Trump because I mean, he's done most of the legislation signing, and he supports most of these things. He wants to better the economy. He's done a lot of revitalization in communities that have low income, and like you said, the $3 trillion that probably gone into debt is gone into some of these communities.
Like what communities are like the debt going into? Like I don't know. I was kind of like confused by that.
Oh, well, a short explanation is Trump started something called opportunity zones. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
All right, so over 8,760 communities in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and 5 territories, they've been designated as opportunity zones. And basically, opportunity zones help to encourage investment, growth, and in underserved communities.
Yeah, the problem with opportunity zones for me is that they do like little to actually like incentivize investment. Like it's there and it can, but like the actual opportunity zones, there's like not a significant increase in investment there. There's the 2017 law that creates like tax incentives, but like that doesn't really necessarily come from the debt that he spent, and like we don't actually like see an increase in these like opportunity zones. And like especially if we're looking at overall like statistics such as like unemployment, GDP, Obama had more growth in every single category for Trump in his last 2 years than Trump did in his first two. So like although the economy was all at these all-time highs under Trump, he did not do like anything for that because he literally like as soon as Obama left office, the growth slowed down. It was still there, but it slowed down. And like obviously, I'm not going to compare Obama's first 2 years to Trump's first two because it's a completely different scenario. But that 4 year period where Obama had two and Trump had two were relatively the same. But Obama's growth still beat Trump's in every single category except for S&P 500s. And yeah, that's where I fall with that. Like there's he basically like his tax cut program is just like a it's just like a substitute for trickle down economics, which like you give people tax, which like I think we both know already, where you give rich people tax cuts and they're going to invest in these communities like opportunity zones, but that doesn't actually happen because like rich people don't need to keep investing in more things. They just keep their money and save it. And like we don't like this whole like notion, it failed so drastically under Ronald Reagan, and Trump's carrying out the same thing. Like opportunity zones are like that's why it's useless, because it relies off of the assumption that if you cut taxes for rich people, then they're going to invest in these zones. But that doesn't happen, because rich people, when they get money, they don't spend it. And so that's why I prefer more of like a bottom up economy where you kind of you increase the social safety net to where poor people actually have money, because when poor people get money, they spend it. When rich people get money, they just save it. And that's kind of what Obama did with his expansion of Medicare and Medicaid, like actually adequately funding Social Security. Trump said that he would fund Social Security, and now it's expected to run out in like 2026. That's another one of his like failed promises that I see.
Wait, can you go more in depth than that? I'm not too much.
Yeah, during his campaign, one of his promises was to like adequately fund Social Security so it wouldn't run out. But the latest estimate is Social Security itself is expected to run out in like 2026. And so that was just like a blatant failure on his part. Like he said that he would adequately fund this, and he just didn't. And like Medicare, he also like that's another big problem with him is his healthcare. I guess we can like transition into that a little bit. He has like no plan. Like even like the entire GOP as a whole has like literally almost zero healthcare plan, except to just like pull back on Obamacare. Like when he was trying to repeal and replace Obamacare, which was like another one of his campaign failures, which I'm glad he wasn't able to repeal Medicare. But like the big problem with Medicare is that, yeah, I can go up. I write this out better with words than I can do it. But the biggest problem with Medicare is that, which he tried to appeal it, but the problem with it is that, like, you're increasing the number of people eligible for individual coverage is what like Medicaid did. But then you're like making his plan to do it and make the percentage of eligible people buying like private health even worse. And so you're just like his plan to take down Obamacare literally just makes Obamacare worse, because he can't get rid of Medicare as a whole. So it takes the bad parts of Obamacare, and this is an entire healthcare plan, is taking the bad parts of Obamacare and making them worse. And like as a president, you have to have some sort of healthcare plan other than just destroy what the other guy did. And that's like literally his only thing. And he also promised in his campaign that he would cover every single American, but there's like let me find there's still 27 million Americans uninsured. In his 2017 plan, that when he tried to repeal and replace, would have knocked 9 people off of Medicaid by 2020 and 14 million off by 2026. And that's like the government. That's from the government like self-reporting it itself. Like they admitted this would happen, and they were just like, we don't care.
Well, okay, I agree that a state and country needs to have healthcare plans, of course. But Trump is trying to solve this healthcare, especially right now during COVID. Healthcare, I mean, it's not really it's something that came up unexpectedly. And Trump has actually been trying to help during healthcare. And going to the funds, he's trying to provide medical leave and medical care to public health to this public health crisis. He's been giving medical leave to most of these Americans. Like my family, we have medical leave. We have payments even though we don't go because we're not in what's it called, first responders or whatever it is.
His Secretary of Health and Human Services literally said that he would like not guarantee everybody in America a vaccine if a vaccine was developed. So like Trump, like the coronavirus thing, I'm not going to like defend Trump for it or concede anything, because I think coronavirus was pretty much entirely his fault. But no, to say that he's trying to extend health coverage during the pandemic is just like blatantly false, because even Alex Azar, is his secretary on that. And he like when he's a first of all, like I kind of want to get into the cronyism. Like he said he would drain the swamp. Then he appointed Alex Azar. And a little bit of in depth on Alex Azar. This guy, he's extremely unqualified. He's a pharmaceutical executive running. Let me find the exact cabinet position. Yeah, he's the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and he used to be the head lobbyist for the pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly. And he raised prices on drugs during his time as the president of the company and earned more than $2 million because of it. So this guy like literally profits off of people not being able to like afford drugs and dying. And he's like the perfect example of someone powerful in like Trump's government who is like actively trying to promote profit over people. And that's what he was doing. So this guy who's the head of this giant firm, Eli Lilly, like basically told the American people that they would not be able to get vaccines. And like that is absolutely ridiculous. And like his administration had to come out and be like, well, what this guy said wasn't necessarily true. But like if he wanted to extend coverage to people, he would guarantee every American healthcare and like tests. But he like as part of his coronavirus response, Germany offered us tests, and he just said no in the beginning. And he did nothing for the entire month of February. And he let in 40,000 people. Like when this initial thing started and we were like repatriating American citizens, he let in 40,000 people back into the country without even testing them. So we didn't even know when we were letting our own citizens back into the country if they had this disease or not, because he just let them back in with 0 tests. And now like we're at what, like 130,000 deaths. The latest estimate or whatever. But no, like there's like 0 metric that he's trying to like expand any kind of health coverage during this pandemic. Like the own people in his cabinet are trying to take advantage of it, such as Alex Azar.
Well, yeah, I do understand that Trump didn't take care of this crisis as well as he could have, but when, like you said, he let in all those people, we didn't really know the severity of the situation. We didn't know how fast this thing would spread. Or
I completely disagree. Like we knew about this pandemic way back in December, but he completely ignored it and tried to push it aside because the only thing he's been worried about since he got elected was getting reelected. And he knew that if he brought attention to this thing, then that would like cause some sort of bad thing. So he did what he does with multiple things, such as climate change and like things like immigration, where he paints it as a hoax and scapegoats it on another group. So he decided to use his position, instead of being cautious and taking advice from experts, he decided to go ahead and just scapegoat Democrats, calling this a hoax and like saying they were fear-mongering the American people, which is like painfully ironic. But no, he knew about this all the way back in early December. And the only action he took up until then was like banning travel on like January 31st from China. And then for the entire month of February, he did absolutely like nothing. Like there was nothing done on the entire coronavirus pandemic. For the entire month of February, there was like almost no action. And like even when his top experts were like telling him that he needed to like impose like mandatory lockdowns on states, he like just completely ignored them and said no. He still won't wear a mask like publicly. He won't show up to anything wearing a mask. Like this is like the perfect example of why you don't elect someone to like a public position who's like only known, has 0 experience, and is like only known by the American people for inheriting money, being immature, and making jokes on television, and having like 45 sexual assault allegations. Like why did we think that putting this guy in charge of the United States would be beneficial, and just like assuming that, oh, this is just like sticking it to the Democrats, we're going to put Donald Trump in power? The entire coronavirus pandemic is just like the consequence of that action of like allowing this guy to be put in there when he has 0 experience. And like all he did before was a businessman, and he sucked at being a businessman. There's no, like, it's almost unfathomable to me, like how we're letting this guy run like the next like global pandemic response.
well, I like I said, I don't think he handled it the best that he could, but he did what the best that he could have done with the information he had. And
how did he handle it like the best he could when he did nothing in February?
Because like you said, he was mostly focusing on the election, but that's what all presidents do.
Well, exactly. No. If there's a global health pandemic, he should not be focusing on the election.
It wasn't a global pandemic. It was mostly just something that happened in China, and we weren't really focused on it. I didn't even know until like February.
But the World Health Organization warned him about it. They told him that like this has pandemic potential, and he just ignored it. And then he cut funding. Like he had to cut funding from who? Like he was warned multiple times. He was warned back in December that like this could get really bad, but he didn't care. And that's like the entire like point I'm trying to make here is that he will never put America first, and he never has throughout his entire presidency because all he's been worried about is getting reelected, which like I don't want to like compare to past presidents, but a lot of them like to say every president done that is like blatantly untrue. Like Obama, for example, during his he did something that was seen as relatively unpopular and that would make a lot of lobbyists in Congress in like Washington mad when he reinterpreted the Clean Air and the Clean Air Act to where now he could reduce CO2 emissions by 20%. That was his interpretation, and that made him like super unpopular within like lobbyists in the fossil fuel industry. Trump, on the other hand, went back and interpreted the Clean Air Act in a different way. And now he's only like 1% of the reduce in emissions. And he claims to be like an environmentally friendly president. But like, no, getting back to like the original point, he was given information about this back in December. He was told it could be bad. And he chose his reelection potential over like the will of American people. Like he knew Americans could die and he willingly like blatantly ignored it. And he like literally played golf over the weekend. Like, wow, there's a global pandemic on. And he promised in 2016, he tweeted out that he would not play golf his entire presidency because he would be working. And since then, he's played golf over 122 times, and it's cost taxpayers over $100 million. So, like, this guy's playing golf during the pandemic, and he's done it multiple times throughout the entire thing. There's no way that he, like, genuinely cared about this the entire time until it started to threaten his election potential, which is very recently.
Well, I mean, I don't know much about him golfing because I didn't really look into that. But what I'm saying is the pandemic wasn't really much of a problem. Like I said, it was only in China. And yeah, the World Health Organization did let him know that this might be a problem. But, you know, the same thing happened with Ebola. We didn't really have much of a plan until after things started getting serious. And it's not really a fair assumption to say that since you ignored something for a while and then it got bad and then you start trying to focus on it.
Well, yeah, absolutely it is, because it wasn't just like February, there was nothing done. And it wasn't just a Chinese thing in February. I'm fairly certain, I need to make this sure by looking at a timeline. But there was like numerous other countries already infected by February. Like to say that this was just solely a Chinese problem and all of a sudden it exploded is like not true. Like, because Italy was infected way before us, before we had done anything. South Korea, and like these are countries that are relatively the same of us. They're both first world countries that we're like strong allies with. It wasn't just specifically this small problem, right? It was like it was still all over the news. Like this guy totally should have done something about it, but he called it a hoax on a rally when he knew it was not a hoax, but just to like stick it to Democrats and try to like fire up a rally, he called it a Democratic hoax, and now it's killed over 100,000 people. Like yes, I'm going to blame him for having a terrible response as when he's supposed to be the leader of the free world. And he went out and called a pandemic a hoax that later killed 100,000 people. That's so insanely irresponsible for someone who's supposed to be the leader of the free world. Like, it's like I said before, it's unfathomable that this guy came out and called and like took this not serious. He didn't take this seriously at all. Still hasn't even put on a mask. That also proves to me that he still hasn't taken this seriously. And like, we're just saying that it was a small problem and he couldn't have known. But like the World Health Organization was like begging the United States to do something and he wouldn't do it. This is all throughout February. There was nothing done by his administration.
Well, like I said, right now he's trying his best to mitigate the situation. He's been providing medical leave for families. He's been trying to what's it called? The the United States is actually leading the world in tests.
No, they're not. We're 26 in testing per capita. We're 26.
Oh, well, who's in first?
I'll look it up right now. But yeah, we're 26 per capita. That was another thing he lied about. He said we were leading in testing. That is like, yeah, we're
I meant over South Korea because I think we're 17 per 100,000. I can't remember.
I need to go back and look, but I checked a few days ago and we were 26 per capita in testing, and we're one of the only first world countries on an upward. I think we are us, and if you want to consider Russia a first world country, which I don't really, are on the upward curve, but we're not like the top in testing by like any metric. And he said last week he wanted to roll back on testing. And then if they asked him it was a joke, he said no, he wasn't joking. Because he wanted to keep cases down. Yeah, we're 20 fact checks. Okay, how recent is this? Yeah, PolitiFact did it, and we are not even close. Yeah. So yeah, we're not near number one. But I guess we can move on to another point if you want, because we talked about Corona for a while. How do you feel about his like border wall response?
I think he's done a lot for us. I don't think he could have presented it in the best way because, like I said before, when I first heard about him, I didn't support him because I just heard what he said and didn't look into the facts. But I think he's done a lot.
Like for the border wall, how do you feel about like the wall?
The wall, I think I really support it because I mean, of course, it's not gonna like it. There's things that could go over it. You know, obviously people could go over it, but it stops mostly from drug cartels from getting into the U.S. easier.
Drug cartels don't come over like by land hardly ever. They use tunnels.
Well, no, that's not true because ICE stopped a lot of drug cartels from going into the southern border.
Like how many? Like my argument for the wall is that ICE is unconstitutional by violation of the Fourth and Sixth Amendments, because let me pull up my interpretation. Okay, I'll pull it up real quick. The Fourth and Sixth were ICE is by definition a concentration camp. The sector of it that runs these camps, they're by definition concentration camps. Like the group, the Jewish group that designates names for concentration camps label these as concentration camps, and we are violating human rights violations that we helped draft in the UN Human Rights Council, which Donald Trump has since pulled out of. Like he literally left the Human Rights Councils, but it's violating the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution because they're being denied fast and speedy trials. And the reason this is unconstitutional is because when we put people in camps at the border, we don't they're asylum seekers, right? That's what a lot of these people are coming through. They're from Central America, so they're trying to seek asylum. But the problem is that asylum seekers, by international law that we helped create, are supposed to be be able to claim amnesty and designate asylum before they're apprehended for anything. But we're not even allowing people to be able to claim asylum at the check spots. We're just automatically apprehending them and throwing them in concentration camps. And so that is a violation. And then they're being held there for these limited amounts of time. Kids are being separated from their parents. And that's a violation of the Sixth Amendment. And then the Fourth Amendment rights is they're being searched unwarranted, and that violates their Fourth, because they don't get papers for these things. They just show up and they take people without papers and they throw them in camps. And the treatment there, they put out propaganda that shows they have hand sanitizer and TVs and toys for kids. That's the same stuff that they have in prison. that there's absolutely, and like even then there's absolutely no reason to even have camps, because there is no like logical reason for like outlawing immigration, like trying to restrict immigration in the first place. Because when we look at like meta-analysis of studies, immigrants do not steal American jobs like Trump claims they do. Like that's never happened, because immigrants have either super low skill sets or they have super high skill sets. And so it's almost impossible to find like actual like valuable like sources that show that they're causing an increase in wages. But they're the only group that immigrants cause like a depletion of wages for is people with only high school degrees and then that are males. And even then the effect is minimal. So there is like absolutely no reason to not want these people to come into the country in the first place. And like the fact that we're throwing them in camps is ridiculous. And like if he wants to make the crime argument, illegal immigrants commit less crime than domestic born citizens. And so there's literally no reason at all. He just needed a scapegoat to fire up his supporters in the Rust Belt. And so he said, these are the immigrants, they're stealing your jobs, when in reality that's completely unfounded and baseless. And he just needed a scapegoat to paint on, so to like fire people up, which is a characteristic of fascism, is scapegoating a group in order to like gain political power. Which is exactly what he did to immigrants over the border.
Well, I want to add to your point. You said that the Trump administration is allowing people to like be separated from their families and asylum.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Obama actually backed some of that.
I don't care. Like I don't. It doesn't matter if Obama did it. Trump.
No, I know that. I'm just saying. Like, let me get to my point. Obama supported that, and Trump is actually now working to reform that. He's reforming the asylum system, which actually drives illegal immigration. Because if you don't have livable standards inside where those camps, like you said, the concentration camps, yeah, it drives people to go in illegally, stay over their visas. That's why he's trying to reform the asylum system.
The people that are here aren't the people we're throwing in camps aren't just overstayed visas. They're people that like came across the border and are trying to seek asylum by international law, and we're just apprehending them and throwing them in a concentration camp. Like they're not just like people just on overstayed visas. They're like just random people that are coming trying to seek asylum from war-torn countries that we are the cause of their war-tornness. And like that's the violation, is that we don't even know if they're trying to seek asylum or if they've committed a crime, if they've overstayed a visa or not, because we don't track that. We just find them and throw them in camps if they don't have like the documentation.
Mm-hmm. No, but like I said, Trump is working to reform that. The Trump administration, they took actions to close the Flores settlement agreement loophole, the one where it allows called people that's searching asylum to get things like water and food and stuff, but which was actually not used, and like you said, it's infringing on people's rights. But Trump is actually working to keep families together too through these proceedings, and he has released an immigration plan to fully secure the border, modernize our laws, and promote immigration system based on merit.
Well, earlier this year, like this was just a few months ago, he loosened the restrictions on ICE, and he's been upping ICE raids. Like there was a day a couple months ago where like ICE was doing mass raids. Like to say that he's like Obama's was worse, or that Trump's trying to like stop it, like it's not true, because this was in January. He vastly like reduced restraints on ICE and like what they could and could not do. And like he's also not taking into account, there's a massive Facebook group of these ICE officers that they found like a high percentage. I don't have the exact percent. I can look to find it and send it to you later. That like ICE people are involved in like supremacy groups on Facebook, and they were caught sending like slurs and like pictures of like people they had harassed and these things. And like no word from him on that. They thought like, even if he's trying to reform it, if he doesn't outright ban them immediately, he's still violating international law, and they're still by definition a concentration camp. So like even if he is trying to reform it in the slightest, which I still don't think he is, because he keeps upping ICE's like detainee numbers, it still wouldn't matter unless he completely abolishes the camps, because it's still a violation of international law that the United States helped draft. And there's no reason to have them in the first place, because immigration is a net good. They contribute $2 trillion every year, and that's the government self-reporting itself.
And how do you? Okay, where is that money coming from?
They pay taxes. They contribute to the economy because we have to take. Immigrants definitely pay taxes. They pay taxes when they buy products at grocery stores. They pay income tax. They pay property tax, and like property tax, for example, like 45% of school funding comes from local property tax, and so they like obviously they contribute massive amounts in taxes. And then we also have to take into consideration that a lot of these people coming over here are much poorer because every immigrant we get is either really low skilled or really high skilled. So if they're high skilled and they come over here, say they're like a doctor, then a doctor obviously would contribute to the economy because of wealth, but most of them are low skilled. And so when a low skilled person comes over, they're going to have needs. And when they work and they like scrape for like minimum wage, which is good for these people, they spend money, and like spending money at local businesses and whatnot, that like is a massive like boost to the economy. And so like that's what I mean by that. Like there is no reason like to stop these people from coming because they benefit us, and like they don't commit crime. They commit crime less than domestic citizens.
I want to add to that point because I got here in 2019. ICE actually, like you say, you didn't really support ICE, but also enforcement and removal operations (ERO). They arrested 143,099 aliens, 86% of whom had criminal records in the U.S.
Yeah, the criminal records being that like, yes, they're going to have criminal records because they're charging them with the crime of like illegal immigration. So that's where that criminal record comes from.
All would have the crime of being illegal.
What's up?
Wouldn't all of them have the crime of being illegal? Not just 86%.
Not if they're on like some sort of like overstayed like work visa or whatnot. I don't know if they constitute that as a crime, but no, obviously if they're like charging them for crimes, and then a lot of the times, like even if they commit like minimal crime, I still don't care because like jaywalking, like or some kind of like minimal crime, like it doesn't matter. And like even if ICE self-reports itself, which I don't trust ICE's self-reporting. They like still like the vast analysis of every other study that observes ICE shows that they commit less crime than domestic citizens. And like we don't even know if these people do commit crimes. And this is also because like ICE does it because they don't like check for these things. They just like arrest them and throw them in camps. We don't even know their intentions when they come across the border because like they don't ask. They'll just throw them in a camp. Mm-hmm. And like even if they did, like you can't prosecute someone for a crime when you violate their constitutional amendments, and every single person there is their Fourth and Sixth Amendments are being violated, and it doesn't matter if they're a U.S. citizen because the Constitution has been like historically interpreted as persons and not citizens of the United States. So even people that come from other countries still are protected by the Constitution.
Yeah, well, like I said, Trump has been working with the asylum reforms. He's been trying to reduce the apprehensions. Right here it says the Trump administration is stopping deadly drugs and violent criminals from flowing into border.
There are no violent criminals. If these people wanted to commit violent crime, they would just stay in the lawless countries that they were in and commit violent crime. There is no logical reason for someone who commits violent crime to come to the United States and commit violent crime where they'd likely be caught.
No, but that's the thing. They're not just staying. They're going in and out, putting in illegal drugs into our communities. And it says right here, CBP, the Custom Border Protection, they seized over 163,000 pounds of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, fentanyl at the southern border.
I mean, my stance is that all of it should be legal. And so I don't really have a problem with drugs coming over in the first place.
That's the thing. They're in high concentrations. They're not just like medical things.
No, but like I feel like all drugs should be legal. It doesn't really like it. That doesn't like matter to me. But even then, like drug cartels, like they don't commonly like if they say they detain them at the border, that doesn't like necessarily mean that they like stopped them actually physically going over land. It just means they like stopped cartels. And like I said, easy solution to the problem is just decriminalize all drugs, and then we don't have that problem in the first place. But like even then, like when people use trafficking statistics and drug trafficking statistics, like they say that the border stopped human trafficking, they count like people being brought over like with consent as human trafficking. Like 97% of the human trafficking that comes across the border is like consented to, like they're paying someone to take them over in like a boat or like smuggling them over. And so
Yeah.
like say that there's like crime like constantly across this border, like doesn't have much basis because they constitute people's like consent and voluntary action of going over as crime. And even then, like even say we strengthen border security and build a wall, you're not going to be able to, if you're against drugs, you're not going to be able to keep drugs out with a wall because cartels like have underground drug tunnels. And that's why you see like the Secure Fence and Borders Act, which is like the only,
Yeah.
like that was a wall that was built in 2006. It didn't do anything to stop illegal drugs, but you did see a decrease in people coming over, but that wasn't due to the wall itself. It was due to the 2008 recession. And so like we even see that like a wall is such a complete waste of money, and his way of going about it was also one of his like most terrible things he did as president, because he started the longest government shutdown in American history that like kept federal employees without pay for months, and to try to get $5 billion for his border wall. And they only up giving him 1.38 billion when the original they were going to give him was 1.62. So it was like the most useless government shutdown in American history. He ended up getting less money than what he asked for just to build a wall that was like ineffective and has no use in the beginning. And parts of his wall have literally like been blown over by wind. There's no reason for a wall. It's a complete waste of taxpayer money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do understand that they don't just go over land. I've heard about the drug cartels going in. They actually made a submarine and are actually going underwater. But making them, we're trying to cut off as many possible ways for them to come over.
But why are you against them coming over? Like, why are you against people coming over the southern border?
Because it's illegal.
But are you saying that like legality constitutes morality? Like just because something's illegal means that like we shouldn't do it no matter what, or that law can't be changed or adapted to? Like we can't just say like that's a fallacy. You can just be like, the reason they can't come over here is because it's illegal. Because like obviously there's things in the past that we grant like immoral that we still think we should do. Like we had slavery. So like are there any other reasons beside that it's just illegal that we shouldn't let these people come over?
No, it's because the reason it's illegal is because like Trump said, most of the people that come over the border, they're not just people seeking asylum.
Yes, they are. That's literally what they're doing. And we don't know because he just throws them in a concentration camp. We don't know if they're seeking asylum or not, or what their purpose is, because he throws them in a concentration camp before they even have the opportunity to seek asylum.
Well, like I said, I speak from experience because I am Hispanic and I know Hispanic people who stayed over from visas. They committed crimes. They don't pay taxes. Well, other than probably like food tax, like, from store-bought taxes. But they don't really contribute much to the country. And they do take American jobs because
No, that's another logical fallacy. Like when we look at the statistics on these things, like I understand where you're coming from, but you can't use in an argument your own personal experience saying other Hispanics that take American jobs and don't pay taxes, because like the vast overwhelming data on it shows that that's not true. That they don't take American jobs, and that like the job that the immigrant gets, a new one is created due to demand. There is no evidence to suggest that they come over and steal American jobs, because they don't even have the same skill set American workers have. And they do pay taxes. Like to say they don't pay taxes is ridiculous, because if they own a house, they pay property tax. If they get any sort of income, they pay income tax. And if they buy any good, they pay sales tax. And so that's automatically like trillions of dollars being pumped into the economy. And there's no other reason to say there is no reason to say these people shouldn't come over. And like, if you like want to say legality, that's fine, but that's also like a fallacy of like the legality equals morality.
Mm-hmm. No, obviously I don't believe legality equals morality, but I'm stating the fact that the people that come over here, if they really wanted to come into this great country, they would try to go with these what's it called, the forms that they need to sign. They need to go through like what everyone has to go through. My grandpa, he lives in Mexico, but he wanted to come in and stay over his visa. But my parents said that he shouldn't, because he would be deported. And that's basically what ICE is doing. They're deporting people that are staying out of their visa. They're coming here, but they're staying here illegally. And it's not right, because we can't just let people in and then have them wait outside because people don't want to come out.
Well, and they're apprehending random people who are just trying to seek asylum and throwing them in like a literal concentration camp where kids have died. Like,
yeah, and Trump is trying to reform that.
no,
Like,
he's not. He's up. Like he showed the thing where he's upped the number of these border apprehensions and he's loosened restrictions on ICE. If he tried to reform it, he would abolish the camps as a whole. Like if he is trying to do these little ploys, they're just like placebos in order to say the American public that he's not running a concentration camp when by definition he is. And we have to also understand like why these people come here in the first place, right? They're not just like to suggest that someone in like Bolivia, for example, or Mexico or like Guatemala could just like go through the legal process of immigration is ridiculous because that can take years and it can cost thousands of dollars. Like if you want to get in like as quick as possible, that process takes $48,000 to get into. You have to like it's just like if you're rich, you pay your way in, but if you're poor, you have very little chance of getting into the country before things could be too late. Like especially in these war-torn Central American countries. If I were there, I would go seek asylum as well. Like I'm sure you would do the same thing, but like that's where we're violating international law because they're going to seek asylum, and before they can even do that, they're being thrown in a camp. Like I just think that there should be open borders in general because I don't see any net negative of it. But like to say that these people like morally aren't allowed to come over here because like they need to go through the legal process is like very like inconsiderate of the situation that they're in. And it's like they're gonna come over anyway.
okay, well, what's it called? Legally allowing free borders. I mean, that to me that doesn't really make good sense because if you make open borders true, almost anyone could come in. And right now, yeah, I don't agree with people, what's it called, being apprehended for no reason and not being questioned. I think that they should be at least questioned and what's it called, stated the fact that why they're here. But just letting people come in, it's like the same thing as putting a lock on your door. You don't let anyone in your house because you don't know the intention. Yeah, they might be coming and just wanting dinner or to talk with you, but one bad step and something wrong could go.
Or you could look at the statistics of the person that you'd be inviting to your house. And if you see that they're less likely to commit a violent crime against you than the actual family members in your house, which is what is happening with these things because people who come over from Central America are less likely to commit a crime than Americans, then absolutely I would let them into my house, especially if they're going to make me richer simultaneously by doing it. That's exactly what happens with illegal immigrants. They make like they've even linked to wage increases, and there is no wage decrease except for that one group of like males with only a college high school degree, and even there it's minimal. So yeah, absolutely. If I would unlock the door on my house, if I knew the people outside would make me richer if I let them in, and are less likely to hurt me than the person who are just like literally living with me.
But just because they're less likely doesn't mean that they will.
But like there's no like logical reason like so like that's like closed borders like open border like what do you mean like so should I just like move out and be completely isolation is fine.
Sorry, cut out.
Like that's like saying so I'm just gonna like use your own reasoning. So they're less likely to hurt me than my family statistically. Like it's very true. So should I just move out from my family because my family is like likely to hurt me?
What do you mean?
Like my family, like using this analogy, family as in already American citizens and the outsider as in the illegal immigrant. If my family member is more likely or the American citizen is more likely to hurt me than this person outside, then and you're using the logical reasoning that well they could hurt you. Wouldn't it make sense for me to just completely isolate myself from everybody because my family members hurt me and it's like even more likely to hurt me than this outsider?
I want to quickly interject. I think we've been talking about like immigration for a lot. If you guys want to wrap up the immigration point and then talk about some other things that Trump has done, or
I can pick something else. Like I have foreign policy, environment, cronyism. I can do it like whatever.
That's fine. I mostly gather information from it: unemployment, wages, tax cuts, climate change and trade deals. You want to work
All
on
right,
trade?
we can do environment if you have like the environment as well.
Well, I have
Since
made
you
a.
have
I think I could do that.
okay, I guess you can. I'll start with environment. So my biggest problem with him in the environment is that his record on it is absolutely atrocious. He's repealed 66 environmental protection policies. And one of the worst things he done, I mentioned it earlier in the debate, is he reinterpreted the Clean Air Act to where there's only a 1% reduction in emissions instead of 20% under the Obama administration. And I have a list I can link in the chats from NYU Law that they found that like these things that he's repealed are going to lead to thousands of more deaths annually just due to poor air quality in the United States. And like one of the worst ones, I listed a couple too. He made it so that oil and gas companies don't even have to record methane emissions like when they're submitted. He's constantly provided subsidies for things like hydraulic fracking, which has like no positive environmental aspects and is terrible in every way, shape, or form. He withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement, and he claimed in the past that climate change was a hoax. And numerous top climate scientists under his administration have just left because they were told by the Trump administration to reject their research, or they were given a false narrative to try to search out in their studies. This one is Louis Ziska, and he's a top climate scientist who left USDA after the Trump administration tried to bury a study that he did on the effects of climate change on rice nutrition. So this guy knows climate change is real and is trying to actively cover it up in government. And I consider that very irresponsible towards the environment.
Yeah, I want to add on to the Paris Climate Agreement. Trump said that the reason he pulled out of it is because it would have killed millions of Americans' jobs, not only from things like that cause emissions, but just in general because it would take away states' rights from being able to control these.
Well, he pulled out of it because it would kill fossil fuel and gas jobs. Definitely it would. But we have to remember that fossil fuel jobs are going to die anyway. Like fossil fuel jobs are on decline, and it's because fossil fuels are a resource that is not sustainable. It's going to run out, and green energy is a massive alternative that we could be investing in. But Trump is not he's not doing it because his top lobbyists are all coal and oil executives, and the head of the Environmental Protection Agency is a coal lobbyist. He literally put someone who lobbies for coal as the head of the EPA, and we're like, oh, this guy's going to protect the environment. No. So the reason he pulled out was to protect jobs being lost that were going to be lost anyway because people are funding him from that job sector. Like there's no like environmental protection reason for pulling out of that agreement. And of course, jobs are going to be lost, but their jobs are going to be lost anyway. If he wanted to create American jobs, he would be investing in green energy, and he would stop subsidizing coal and natural gas because like the potential for green energy surpasses the current coal and natural gas like immensely. And like even from a economic perspective, if we were to create like a massive innovation in green energy, this was Elizabeth Warren's plan, and then sell those plans and research that we had developed to other countries, America would make a killing off of it. And like we have the potential to lead the world like exponentially in green energy, and we're just not because Donald Trump's campaign is being funded by coal lobbyists, and the head of the Environmental Protection Agency like is a coal executive.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to also notice that things like fossil fuels, that's what mostly the U.S. profits from. We profit from oil, profit from gasoline. Yeah, and it's not the most sustainable, but at the moment we can't just transition into that straight away. He's
Absolutely, we could. We could transition to nuclear energy and green energy, and the projections on that is that it would have a net positive on the economy compared to fossil fuels. There is no reason to keep using fossil fuels for things because the potential in the other things vastly outweighs it. And even if we put in nuclear power now as the main alternative to coal and natural gas, like that would surpass it. Like nuclear is fine. Like I'm not completely for or against nuclear. I think it's important in a transition, but like even the jobs in environmental energy even pay higher than like the coal mining jobs and whatnot. The only reason he's not doing this is because he has lobbyists paying for him, which like he said he would not have like lobbyists and he would drain the swamp. And then that was like another big lie of his. And he came back and put this in, and it's like destroying the environment. Like we have to transition out of fossil fuels, or we will all be dead within 300 years. And like he's ignoring it and automatically like using his lobbyists.
Yeah, but Trump is actually he's focused on transitioning from non-affordable prices on things like power saving, like green cars. He's been putting efforts into making those affordable, which obviously right now they're not because they're not the main focus. But like you said,
And that's what's done like nothing.
What?
Like sure, he can put effort into something, or like nuclear energy or electric cars, but if it's done nothing, then it's meaningless. And what he did do was pull out of a Paris climate agreement that every other major nation in the world was in, and now we're the only one out of it, even though we're one of the world leaders in CO2 emissions.
Mm-hmm.
And he rejects like literal climate science. He says it's not real, and he said it's not real multiple times. And he pushes the narrative within the United States government that climate change is not real. When he got elected president, every single like thing addressing climate change on the WhiteHouse.gov website was taken out. We have a president who won't even acknowledge that the greatest threat to humanity right now is real. Like he won't say climate change is real.
Yeah, but we can also see different things. Like he replaced Obama's Clean Power Plan. I think you said that already, but that was because it didn't respect states' rights and it was not affordable.
What rights? What rights were it not respecting?
I can't remember the exact one, but I think it was the right to I can't remember.
Well, yeah, because like states' rights are like. That's why the federal government is more powerful than states' governments. Because if you have a great existential crisis such as climate change, then the federal government has the power, even if it was infringing state rights, which I doubt, because it was passed in the first place. And if it really infringed on states' rights, the Supreme Court would have overturned it. Like they've overturned 3 of Trump's decisions in the past 3 weeks. They would have overturned it. But no, it was not in violation of like states' rights, or else the Supreme Court would have done something about it and state courts would have done something about it. And that the way he reinterpreted it just like screwed us over in emissions. And he said it was like cleaner, which was also a blatant lie. Because like I said before, it dropped from 20% reduction to 1. And like he doesn't even like he made it legal, like I said earlier, for these people not even to self-report on their emissions. So like methane executives can just like do whatever they want. They don't even have to report the numbers. Like the guidelines still there. Like they say you don't have to go over this certain amount, but how they can't be held accountable to it because they're not even like they don't even have to do it. They don't even have to report it to the government.
Yeah, well, like I said, I didn't really have much prepared for climate change, but based on what I've seen, I mean, yeah, he hasn't really spoken much about climate change. That's not really what his main focus was when he ran for president. But he has implemented things like the clean energy rule.
Which rules has he implemented that have like reduced anything relating to the environment?
The clean energy rule.
Like I said before, that reduced like the previous thing, like it brought it down from 20 to 1%. So that had a net negative compared to the last administration. That's not improving anything environmentally.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, it's also for the long run.
Right the now, long run is not dying from climate change.
No. I'm saying that he's focusing on transitioning slowly into green power energy, into more.
How is he doing that? He hasn't though. He's not he's not investing in green energy because he literally denies the science itself.
Yeah, but he's been trying to what's it called? He's been trying to get affordable cars that run on clean energy. He's been trying to get more jobs into the climate change, jobs that work more for green energy.
But what policy has he done that's done that? Like what policy has he passed that's done that?
Let's see. I have it right here.
Okay, because I need to like look it up because I'm unaware of anything he's done to like provide incentives towards electric cars and green energy. I'm a bit skeptical.
I had the site. I don't have it right now. No, I don't have it right now.
Okay. Right now I'm not believing it, but I'll look into it later. But like his entire, like one of his platforms was repealing 100 environmental policies. Like that is so ridiculously irresponsible for the leader of the free world to, one, deny climate science, and two, say he was going to repeal 100. He repealed one that was one of the first environmental policies ever enacted in the United States, which was like protecting birds. And like obviously it's minimal because it's like a bird protection thing, but he went ahead and went to reel it back. And like there was a guy from the Environmental Protections Agency that had worked on it for years. He worked from under the Reagan administration, and the first time he had ever taken a political stance in his entire life was when Trump repealed that rule, because he said that like Trump was so disastrous to the environment that he had to take a political stance for once. And so like the actual people who work in the environment, like anyone with any credibility, like wholeheartedly agrees that this guy, one, denies climate science, two, like goes for the fossil fuel industry when it has no long-term benefit to like continue providing tax subsidies for fossil fuels. And like three, he just like doesn't care because it's like if he admits climate change, then the left gets a win on him, and he won't do that because he doesn't care about the well-being of the American people and he cares about himself.
Yeah, but also Biden doesn't really even believe in.
No, yeah, he does. Biden has an entire thing on his website focused on climate. Trump doesn't even address it.
But Biden didn't even endorse the Green New Deal.
Yeah, a lot of people don't support the Green New Deal, but neither does like Trump. So it doesn't matter. And like you can't just allude and say, "Oh, well, Biden does this either," when we're having like a debate about Trump. Like the burden of proof is like to prove Trump is here, but no, Biden has like substantial environmental regulation.
Yeah, and with that, I don't want to get too much into Biden because this debate is about Trump.
Yeah.
If you guys want to say like one more topic, and then we could kind of like end it off. If you guys want to do like one more kind of thing about Trump, I don't know.
Sure. I'm kind of indifferent on which like topic we do. So Christian, you can like choose one if you want to, or if not, I can do like cronyism.
I think I cut out from my internet. What did you say?
We can do one more topic. I'm indifferent. I have things like on his like past like racism and like sexism and stuff, and then I have things on like with cronyism and like the dream. So I can do whatever.
What things did he do racist, I guess?
Well, like first of all, I'd like to preface it by saying I'm not going to say he's racist, but I will say things that he said are racist and things that he's done have had bad racial implications. A brief summary: he got sued for redlining, which is like blatantly racist back in 1973. Told two congresswomen that they need to go back to their countries. He banned Muslims from the United States from 13 countries. And this was absolutely, I don't know if you want to call it like xenophobic or racist or both, but he banned Muslims from 13 countries. First it was 6, and then he expanded it to 13. And the majority of the countries that he banned Muslims from weren't even violent Muslims. And the two that he didn't ban there were Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan, where the majority of terrorists come from that commit like terrorist acts in the United States. And so like, it was just blatantly like coming out saying, I don't like Muslims. And that's another characteristic of fascism he has, is that he likes to scapegoat certain groups. And he knows like a lot of Americans are scared of Muslims because of the terrorist attacks. So he's like, oh, I'm going to ban them from the country, when like literally the countries that he banned don't commit terrorist attacks on the United States. He banned an entire like religion from entering the U.S. when Muslims in the United States commit less hate crimes than Christians, even adjusted for like proportionality. Like there's no reason to do this. And he didn't ban Saudi Arabia, which is where Al-Qaeda came from. And he's funding, like we recently had a $350 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia to sell them weapons. And Saudi Arabia is committing a genocide in, how is that going in Yemen? They're like literally committing a genocide, and Trump just sold them weapons. Like I'm saying, I'm not calling him racist for this, but the fact that he's like picking and choosing based on his own interest, even though like I would understand a ban from maybe Saudi Arabia or Afghanistan, I wouldn't support it, but I would like understand the reasoning behind it because we have had terrorists come from there. He didn't ban those two countries, and instead he banned from 13 ones that we don't have terrorists come from anyway, just to scapegoat an entire religion and group of people.
From?
What?
Which countries did he ban from?
He banned from like the ones that like Kyrgyzstan, peaceful. He also banned. I have a list. Let me find it real quick. It was 13. He banned. I know Nigeria was on the list as well, even though Nigeria like is a military ally of the United States that we use to fight against things. Here's the countries. There were 6 majority ones that were banned at first. And then he added Nigeria, Myanmar, Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Sudan, and Tanzania. Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan were both left out, despite most terrorists coming from those countries. And in addition, like I know this isn't racism, but his foreign policy has been insanely anti-LGBTQ. He left the UN Human Rights Councils. He won't let U.S. embassies fly pride flags during Pride Month. He denied diplomatic visas for same-sex partners, fired the envoy who promoted the rights for genders and sexual minorities, cutted State Department's Bureau of Democracy and Human Rights labor budget by 20%, continues to praise anti-LGBT leaders such as the Brazilian president and the Polish president, put numerous anti-LGBT individuals in his administration, such as Mike Pence, who's been in support of like transition camps for people who are LGBTQ, and his admin tried to launch like an international campaign to decriminalize homosexuality, but it had little effect, and Trump wasn't even aware of the campaign until it was brought up to him in like a press report. So I would say from his actions that he has committed anti-LGBTQ actions, anti-Muslim actions, and racist actions through his foreign policy on immigration and the Middle East.
Well, I really heard about the can you go more in depth on the LGBT leaders, the anti-LGBT leaders?
Yeah, the Polish president is like blatantly against LGBT people, and Trump has praised him multiple times. And in addition, the Brazilian president is the same way, Bolsonaro, and like both of them are very blatantly anti-LGBTQ, and he praises them both like all the time. Like the leader of Poland is one of his like alt-right buddies, like, because Poland's a very like right-wing nationalistic country. He also praises the leader of Hungary, who's also like an alt-right dictator. Don't know if that guy has anti-LGBT rhetoric. I wouldn't be surprised though.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like I said, Trump, he's more of a focus on America, but I don't really.
What has he done for America? Like that's what I'm trying to get at here. Like
you said,
his foreign policy is huge for America, and none of his foreign policy has benefited America.
Well, yes, it has. I mean, he's opened up a lot of what's it called, African American jobs for all backgrounds, not only African Americans, Hispanics, Asians. He's done a lot of things. Like I said, he's opened up. What's it called? He's gotten us more. What's it called? The middle class and lower class citizens. He's gotten us a deficit. What's it called? We're experiencing more. I have it right here. We're growing in wages more than the higher class citizens.
Yeah, but like I still don't like when was that? Because like I said before, Trump's economy was inherited by Obama. I can send you like sources to prove that, and his growth thing was slower. So I'm not going to credit to any like the economics. Like just because Trump was president doesn't mean that like this was because of him, especially because like the president in power is only the 7th most important aspect of like economic growth. And so if the economy is already good once he's put into power, and it goes down slower once he's in, and he's only the 7th most like important reason for economic growth, then like we can't just say that this economy is Trump's economy, because it makes like no sense. And especially because like the only piece of legislation he passed was a tax cut that cut taxes on the upper class. And like, unless we want to like say that trickle down economics is real, then that doesn't like do anything, because like that's what it was. It was just a proponent of trickle down economics.
Mm-hmm. No, but like, yeah, he has been doing things like I said, he's been revitalizing distressed communities. That in turn,
what distressed communities have had a net benefit? Like which specific ones? Like, I know that may have been like his intention, like his administration's intention with the policy, but we have to look at the outcomes of these things as well. Because to my knowledge, there is no like substantial wage increase in any of these, like Detroit or like what's another big one, like basically like Detroit's an example, Philadelphia, stuff like that, to where like would be these examples. Like, unless I see any empirical like actual numbers on how these things have gone up, I'm not like buying it.
Hang on, I have the site here. I have to look it up.
If you link it if you link any of the studies in the chat, I can read over them when we're done too.
Okay. I've written down this. I think it was factcheck.org and whitehouse.gov articles.
Okay, I'll check them out. The only thing that I would say that he would do to help minorities that he has tried to like actually do and had some effect was the criminal justice reform that he passed, which was the First Step Act. But even then, like that was like one of his only like half decent pieces of bipartisan legislation. And he like claimed like his administration had this big win over it when he didn't even write it himself. It just passed through Congress and he signed it into law. And then in the budget for 2020, the First Step Act requires $75 million a year over 5 years to be effective. And he only allocated $14 million to it this year. And so like the First Step Act is like basically useless now because it's not helping the people it was intended to help, which was like minorities in prison. And the one of the biggest laws in the country that holds minorities and like people in general through the prison system is mandatory minimum sentences. And the only thing he's done on mandatory minimums is like extend them to people in those camps. So like he is for extending mandatory minimums, which imprison innocent people like a lot, or people that like don't even commit crimes, and he's extending that to like illegal immigrants. And that's like the most common sense piece of like criminal justice reform that we need to do is get rid of those.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and also he's also worked on reducing regulatory barriers to affordable housing and development. So that's obviously helping lower class income.
Like what policy was that?
I have to look that one up too. I'll send you the link to that one later. But
well, I would argue for some regulation on there because like if you're getting rid of regulatory borders, you're getting rid of rent control, which like that's a huge problem in the United States. So I need to look more into that in order to like argue it correctly. But these barriers that he's claiming are barriers, I would like by the looks of them, I'd be in favor of these barriers because I don't see this as a barrier. I see it as a safeguard.
All right, I think we've kind of exhausted our time. I don't know if you guys want to make some like closing remarks to kind of wrap the entire thing together.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
So, Drew, do you have any closing statements?
I guess like, I mean, not really. I mean, I'll have to look more into that regulatory barriers thing. I don't know. I'll look more into that. But I basically like stand true to my premise that the guy has like he claimed to put America first, never did it. The policies that he is trying to fight the hardest for the border wall are useless, and like I said before, like he's been just like massively ineffective, and he shouldn't be elected again. It's still my stance.
Yeah. My stance obviously is I hate Biden, but I mean I don't know much about him other than he doesn't really know what he's talking about. But I have to also look into that, and obviously I only had 3 days to prepare for this. But yeah, I mean you have informed me about a lot of these things, but I still think that a lot of the things that Trump did was far outweighs the good. Obviously, we can't just contribute most of what is happening in the United States just to him, but I think a lot of the things might have been just him.
All right.
Yeah, it was good talking to you.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. Thank you both, Drew and Christian, for coming on. And I guess, yeah, that's all. I'll end the broadcast now. Thank you, guys.
All right. See you, Christian.
Yeah.